guys, welcome back into the channel, and as promised, today we're going to cover my recommended settings for MLB The Show 20. Now, I'm not the most experienced, I'm not necessarily the best player at MLB The Show 20, which is why I think that I stand in a good position to give a lot of you guys my recommended settings and some things that might help you guys out and just improve your kind of quality of life whenever you're actually playing the game. And so we're going to go in and adjust some settings today and hopefully be able to show you guys everything that I run whenever I'm pitching and hitting and everything like that. It helps me out. So the first thing I want to discuss is the skill level that I play on. Kind of a good baseline skill level to start the game out on is All-Star. If you're more experienced than I, you will probably go up in difficulty to Hall of Fame or Legend or something like that. Personally speaking, I think it is most beneficial to start out at a baseline difficulty and just try to get good at it and improve before you move up to the next level. I don't see a whole lot of value to the dynamic difficulty. I find it a little bit cumbersome, to be honest with you, because it'll go from, at times, it's easy to perform and it's hard to perform, and that's just pretty much completely based off the fact that it will change depending on how you're performing. And so I'm not a fan of dynamic. I start on All-Star and then move it up as necessary from that point. But since we're actually on the mound right now, I'll go ahead and give you guys my pitching settings. I find that it's easiest to go with the meter pitching. Personally speaking, classic, pure analog, and pulse just aren't as nice to use. They're not as fluid for me. You guys might have a different opinion, but I think meter is kind of the smoothest way to actually go about pitching in the game, and it has been for a couple years now. In terms of pitch feedback, I turn my pitch feedback on. I have my pitching view set to broadcast, and the main setting that you want to worry about with pitching that isn't going to be on for you immediately is the pitch trail. So what it'll start out as the base is pitch trail fade. So whenever you select your pitch and you start selecting your location, it will fade away once you select your pitch, and I'll demonstrate that here for you real quick. So see how it fades away once I select the pitch, and then if I want to move around my location of the pitch, that makes life a little bit difficult. You can't see after a split second where the ball is actually going, so that makes things a little bit more complicated than it should. And so if you want to just have a better quality of life in terms of your gameplay, I recommend in your pitching settings turn pitch trail on, and it will stay on the whole time. That way you can adjust where you're actually playing the ball. And then the other settings, I just have pitch confidence on, pitch delay normal, and API set to default. Those I don't bother with, but the main one that you want to worry about is turning pitch trail on, and I'll show you what that looks like now. And so see, it stays on the whole time, and as I adjust my location, it stays there, and I can continue to adjust my location as much as I need to, because I think this just kind of improves the quality of life. I think that this just makes everything a little bit easier for you. And realistically speaking, when you're on the mound, you can change your location. You don't have to, once you select a pitch, you don't have to immediately know right away that it's going to one spot. You can change your mind. That's kind of how the fluidity of the game works. And so I like having the pitch trail on because it allows me to change my mind. It allows me to locate, maybe I miss a line where I want my pitch to go to start. I can start back at the base and kind of bring it back to where I want to, and it just makes life a lot easier that way. And so that's pretty much all you have to worry about in terms of pitching. We'll get into some of the hitting stuff soon once I figure out how to set up a play where I'm at bat. So create play. I want to be batting. Yep. Alright, so now that we're up to bat, there are some settings that you guys are going to want to play around with your hitting settings, and some quality of life things that'll make your life a little bit easier here. And what I do for my hitting settings is I go to gameplay here, batting and base running. Like I said, I start out on All-Star. Generally speaking, If I'm having difficulty locating the ball on the base, which is strike zone 3, this base camera, I will go to strike zone 2, where it's a little bit further in, and what this does for you is it allows you to track the ball a little bit easier. It kind of takes away some of the field of view, and you're focused more on the ball coming in at you. Now, this could make things more difficult for you. It could make things easier for you. I find that sometimes it helps me track the ball better, and it allows me to at least get to the location of where the ball is going. However, the drawback to this is if you go into a more zoomed in look like this, which is kind of more of a batter's eye angle, you're going to swing at more balls that are outside of the zone. That's just kind of the inherent nature of it, because it's less easy to tell which balls are going outside from this camera angle versus whenever you're zoomed out at the strike zone 3, you can tell more easily what balls are actually outside of the strike zone. So let me go ahead and flip that back. So I'm going to go to strike zone 3, and then just show you guys a little bit of strike zone 3 here. And now, like, from this angle, it's harder to track the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand because you're zoomed in less, but you can tell which balls are outside of the zone earlier on. So I could kind of tell that that one was outside of the zone. And you can make the read a little bit easier, so I can tell that's in the zone. It's up to you guys what you guys want to run on. I bounce back and forth between strike zone 2 and strike zone 3 depending on how I'm hitting and how I'm feeling. You know, if I feel like I need to track the ball a little bit better, I will go ahead and bump it down to strike zone 2. In terms of my other gameplay settings, I leave the in-play view offense as dynamic. This is the desired viewing angle for balls hit into play. I don't really have an opinion on this. I don't mind it being on dynamic. It'll kind of change up depending on where the ball's hit and stuff like that. The ball trail, this makes it easier kind of in the daytime whenever it's bright outside to be able to see where the ball's going. You guys can kind of turn that off, turn that on at your leisure. I don't have a specific, that doesn't really improve my quality of life because as an offensive player, you don't really, I mean, you do kind of need to know where the ball's going from a base running perspective, but you're never really going to lose track of it. And then in terms of the hitting interface, I find that zone hitting is the best option to go with. It's the most realistic experience. You know, you can go with pure analog or directional, but honestly, going with a directional type of hitting is a little bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to call it cheating, but that's kind of what it is, because it's purely dependent on timing. It doesn't really involve you actually going and hitting the ball at its spot, whereas zone involves you taking the bat, taking the zone here and moving it to where the ball is. And so I'll show you guys the difference of those. See how I take the zone and move it to where the 12-6 curve came in at and try and hit the ball and time it there. Whereas directional hitting is pretty much just purely dependent on timing, and then you get to kind of choose your option of where you want to send the ball. So if we go ahead and go to options and look at that, we look at directional. So see how there's no zone or anything like that. I just have to pretty much time the pitch, and if you don't time it well, you're not going to hit it, but if you do time it well, you will be more likely to get contact on it. The only difference here is you don't have the option of essentially moving the zone to where the ball's at. So, you know, you can directionally kind of change where you want the ball to go whenever you hit it. But generally speaking, you know, it's just purely timing based. If the ball comes into the zone and you time it well, you'll get a hit off of that. I prefer the zone because it gives me a more realistic experience. And then with the zone hitting interface, you're going to want to change like your input, your analog and stuff like this, or your PCI. So I leave it on buttons for the input and then the analog type for flick. Generally speaking, you're just going to want to hit X, square, and circle for your different types of hits. And then for your PCI indicator, I changed these settings around a little bit. And so the PCI, if you turn that off, that little zone that I have that I moved to the ball is no longer there. But I can still move it around to try and hit the ball. I prefer to have it on to kind of track where the ball's coming in and be able to line it up and get a hit that way. I think that from a quality of life perspective is the best way to go. And then in terms of the PCI, I turn the PCI center off because I find that if I have like a dot in the middle or a diamond in the middle or something like this, it kind of gets in the way of the ball and kind of obstructs my view from actually tracking where the pitch is going. So I prefer to just have the outline of the zone on in order to just kind of place the ball in the middle of the two outlines, and I find that that's kind of the easiest way and the most consistent way to actually get hits. And then the final couple settings are the actual look of the outline. So I have it set to Starfighter right now. You can set it to Fishbowl or Wedge or a couple different things. I'll show you what like the Wedge looks like just to give you guys an idea. So it makes the inside one smaller, the outside one bigger. I've used Wedge before. I don't have too much of a preference. I prefer the kind of symmetrical look of the Starfighter one, which is essentially just a circle or an oval. And then I turn the PCI color to white, and I have the transparency set to 60%. It'll start out at 70%. I like it to be a little bit less transparent because I kind of want to be able to, you know, see it being placed around the ball. So it shows up really nice in white like this. I can place it around the ball real nice and easy. It makes life really easy. And I know I'm just swinging at everything right now, even the stuff outside of the zone. But from a quality of life perspective, I think that these are the ideal settings that are going to allow you to actually pitch and hit you know, without too much frustration. You know, you're going to be able to pick your spots when you're pitching. You're going to be able to track the ball a little bit easier whenever you're hitting like this. And I find that to be kind of the nicest setup for this type of deal. So, you know, those are my recommended settings for MLB The Show 20. Let me know what you guys are using down in the comment section down below. And, yeah, leave a like on the video if this does help you guys out, or if it points out some settings that could be useful to you guys. Subscribe to the channel here if you're new, and comment down below with anything you guys would like to see next. If there are any topics on MLB The Show 20 that you guys could use help with, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below. We got lots of content coming out for a couple different games. In addition to that, if you haven't already, check out my Twitch channel. I've uploaded quite a few videos recently of me just playing some MLB, some Madden, and stuff like that. I know a bunch of you guys watched my Bills franchise update video, so if you guys want to see some gameplay from that franchise, I actually uploaded a game from that, so go check that out on my Twitch channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys have a good one.